Welcome to Ag Matters, covering positive agriculture stories from across Alaska on Big Cabbage Radio.
Hello, everybody. You're listening to Ag Matters. I'm Ken Hoffman, the host. I have a farm out in Palmer called Matsu Microgreens where we grow gourmet vegetables year-round and ship them throughout the state. But I'm also the executive director of the Alaska Farm Bureau. So if anyone out there is a farmer or wants to become a farmer or is just interested in agriculture, you should visit our website at alaskafb.org and join and become a member. And it's a great networking opportunity and a fun community to be a part of. A friend of mine is calling in from Kodiak. We have Kelli Foreman. Hi, Kelli. How are you?
Hi, Ken. I'm doing well, thanks.
Awesome. Okay, so lots of people know of you, but maybe not all of our listeners. So if you could talk a little bit about yourself, how you ended up on the island, and then how you got into dairy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came to Kodiak full-time about 21-ish years ago with the plan to just, stay like 5 years, which is half of Alaskan that I think their story that they didn't plan to stay for a long time. I was a fifth-generation farm kid from Nebraska, and I really just wanted anything but Nebraska at the time and thought that Alaska was a fantastic adventure for me. I had volunteered at a summer camp up here at Kodiak Baptist Mission as a day camp counselor, and I was finishing up my college internship, so I came back up to do that. It was in communication and definitely not farming. But as I got a job here and continued to work, I became the child care administrator at Kodiak Baptist Mission. And I was watching all these kids come through. And as I continued to work with them, I was like, gosh, I really think that the best way to teach kids is through a farm, because that's how I had learned how to do it growing up. So you just be careful, all those little farming roots that begin to sneak back. And so I really intended to just get a couple of goats and maybe a few chickens. And that definitely did not quite stay that way. Now today, 3 boys later, we started a grade A certified goat dairy. Gosh, was it 5-7 years ago? And ran the only grade A goat dairy for a number of years in Kodiak, within Alaska. And then after the raw milk registration became available, I opted to switch over to the raw milk registration option and still now do dairy. So we milk goats and A2 Jersey cows. And so as of today, right now, we have 3 cows that are milking. The goats are on their winter break for now, but we do both through our little dairy, and we sell locally and do a little bit of everything from milk to flavored milk to cheese and ice cream and yogurts and skiers and then eggs, chicken, duck, and then continue to have a small free-range cattle herd and very much a mixed species farm. So dairy is the specialty, but I really believe in that small farm mentality and how every animal helps the other out. So that's me kind of in a nutshell.
All right, so much to unpack. Okay, so where is your farm on Kodiak? Is it at your house or nearby?
Right. So originally, and this is one of those, I think, is kind of a cool story and also hopefully somewhat inspiring. So Kodiak Baptist Mission, where I worked, originated really as a farm. Well, when I had come here, there was an old barn that looked like King Tut's tomb, hadn't been touched, old fencing, old things. And so I had this, idea, hey, we should kind of revitalize this. Well, Kodiak Baptist Mission wasn't using it. I had the motivation to do it, and they felt like that would be a good investment for them. And so they originally invested that in me. So we leased the land, and as we got our start, there then became the opportunity for my husband and I to, quote unquote, buy the farm. So at this point, we own the dairy, we own all the farm animals. We continue to lease the land from Kodiak Baptist Mission, but we really work hand in hand as partners. Right now it's the Christmas season, and every week we're doing a living nativity that's filled with all of our animals. And so it's just been a great partnership. So I always think, gosh, if you have a place where there's a little bit of land and you have a motivated person that doesn't have land. We own land in Nebraska. We don't own land in Alaska. But there are so many young, motivated people that just need a little bit of land and a little bit of motivation, and they can take that and really run with it. And I appreciate that Kodiak Baptist Mission gave me that opportunity all those years ago.
Wow. Okay. So when I think of Kodiak Island, I do not think about agriculture at all. I think about fishing and the water and the bears, of course. Tell us about Kodiak Ag. What are some of the challenges with farming on such a remote island down there and with the weather?
Yeah, you are right. It's definitely a fishing community, adventure, kind of based community. We get a lot of tourism that is focused in on fishing and hunting. And so, we can't process hay at all on the island. Being a temperate rainforest, it rains so much here that we don't get even one dry week, really. Well, we do, but it's not common to get a dry week a year. So it is, a lot of rain, a lot of wind, a lot of inclement weather. And, any time that you are, obviously, we're a disconnected island. So everything comes by boat or plane. There's that statistic that's like overly used that nobody exactly knows where they came up with, for the percentage of amount of food that is imported into Alaska. Well, goodness, there's a lot into Kodiak. And so as far as, just the weather opportunity, ability to get things onto an island, being, a wet climate, that, you have to truly have great indoor spaces available. And then, you're also consistently fighting against a little bit, and not in a bad way, but the lack of agricultural knowledge. When I head up to Palmer or Wasilla, I'm like, wow, look at this great agricultural community. And it's very, it's just different. It's different here in Kodiak to get our minds around that. We're thinking hunting and subsistence fishing way more than livestock food production or, even garden production.
Okay. So dairy production is a tough business everywhere. Here in Palmer, we recently lost Havermeister Dairy. It's just a tough business. Why did you start dairy in a place that's even more difficult, in Kodiak? Well, was that something that you were interested in?
It was interesting. My dad, being the farmer we had done just about every type of agriculture between my grandpas and great-grandpas and my parents. And he's like, Kelly, please don't go into dairy. I've never seen a happy dairyman. Like, don't do that. I was like, Dad, I'm going to do this. I'm really going to do it. And for me, it came down to consistent, predictable food options. And there were a few areas that I looked in, and for me, and I definitely don't claim to push this on anybody else, but it's a really important part of my story. And it's how I serve my community. I'm a Christian, and I believe I have that calling that I need to do that. And I felt that the best way that I could do it was through this knowledge that I had. Well, especially if you start with goat milk, it is the most drank milk universally. It is also a universal milk. And so any species of animal can drink that milk. So whether that be an infant or whether that be a dog or a pig, this milk is so incredibly life-giving. So I knew that if a natural disaster were to hit Kodiak, we would be without milk. We could potentially be without formula. Well, this opportunity, this locally grown item of milk would help keep people alive. Those infants and toddlers that would need milk until potentially we could get, formula in, or there were other options. And now still even further doing that with that A2A2 milk, which is, the protein, and it's an easier to digest protein. It provides a level of safety that we have. And Lord goodness, I hope that, that's one of those things you never have to use. But for me, I felt like that was such a great asset to be able to provide. And I thought, if I can do this on a scale here in Kodiak, this could easily be recreated in any other small village around Alaska as well.
So in your introduction, you threw out some terms, and I'm hoping we can maybe unpack some of that. So you threw out grade A certified dairy, and then you said something about raw milk. And then I also know just from prior experience that people have herd shares. So what are some of the differences between that, and why did you go from grade A certified to raw milk?
Sure. So that grade A certified, you hit and you meet every single certification that a large scale dairy would meet. So even with my little micro dairy with 20 goats, I had to follow every single regulation that like a 10,000 cow dairy in Wisconsin would need to meet. There is a PMO manual, and that manual leads you through all the requirements, and you have to hit those requirements as far as your facility structures, your milk testing, your herd testing. I mean, there's a list of things. Very strenuous, fantastic. It ensures, a product that's going into the store very much for a passive consumer. Havameister Dairy was grade A certified. Now Plagerman's, the Range Dairy, they are grade A certified. And so it works, well for them. They're able to have the opportunity to sell in Walmart or larger, scale groceries they could ship. They're on the interstate shipping. They could go to any other state potentially if there was ever enough. So, big deal. Me being all by myself, the smaller side of dairy, I was finding that a lot of those restrictions and rules, while I was following, those, the having to have the state come out, which I always joke, they always came out on every single holiday and every single, time that it was really tricky for me. And I was not shipping off island at all. I was doing local sales. A couple of the other requirements that I always just struggled with were the bottling. So, you have a specific set of bottling that you have to have, and you have a code that has to go with that. Well, where I was at being located, those bottles started to get to where they were $4 per empty bottle before, just to get them shipped to me. Before I was filling them, the costs were mounting. And then I knew, gosh, these are going into our landfill here. So there were a few of those areas for me that, started to mount up. And so the raw milk registered dairy, there are other restrictions. Obviously, you sell direct from farm. There is not the same oversight, which can be a little scary. When I was grade A and I was like, why did they legalize like this raw milk? That's going to hurt us. That's going to be really tricky if there's ever a problem, because there aren't the same checks and balances potentially, that you would have with grade A certified. However, you very much pinpoint your informed consumer. So folks that are actively seeking out that raw milk, that are actively seeking out a local base, they want that very close connection with their farmers. So for me, I wanted to use glass jars. I wanted to be able to do that. I did not have the funds to be able to put, $30,000, $40,000 into a bottle washer, but I knew that my commercial dishwasher with a largemouth mason jar did the same thing. I couldn't get that grade A certified approved, but I can do that through the raw milk registration. And then the herd shares, folks actually own part of that animal. They are not buying any of the milk products that they have. They actually own the animal, and that's part of the share that they have is to receive milk or the value-added products that animal would produce.
Okay. So how many gallons per day are you producing now? And then also, how do you sell your milk? What are your channels? Do you do farmers markets, direct off farm? Do you use distributors?
Right. So I was, again, I'm small beans. However, I just had a cow that had her calf this past Friday. So we are steadily increasing the amount of milk that we have. So hopefully, here in another month, we'll end up with about 18 gallons of milk a day. I have just, with the cows that I have, obviously when I add goats in there, that doesn't quite double, but it definitely increases. I have a direct farm shop that's just right next to the dairy here. I also host the Kodiak Farmers Market, which is super convenient because I'm still able to sell on the farm. Now you can you are able to sell at markets. There are some things to do. And if there are other local retailers, like the Roaming Root in Fairbank does this, or the Kodiak Co-op here, they do it. They also get registered under the raw milk registration to be able to sell these products locally. You're never going to get your large-scale grocery stores to do something like that. But those direct farm sales, and then those small local grocers are the ones that are primarily going to be selling your product. I do a lot. Like I was over here this last week, birthing a baby calf, and this morning I processed chocolate milk and put the label on it and put it in the refrigerator before I came to my day job. So from very start to very finish, we're our little dairy. We do it all.
So give us the day in the life of a dairy producer. So do you milk twice a day? Is it once a day? Do the cows take a break on Christmas? Do you get Christmas off? Is it? What is it?
It's a little bit of a busy life. I kind of joke, you have to really love it and believe in it to do it. I'm also a full-time mom, and I work full-time on top of the farm and the dairy. So my day starts pretty early, but we milk twice a day. And I try, I get up early. We get those. I feed a baby calf now first, but we get those cows milked, and the milk begins to be processed in one way or another. Whether I'm going to make, yogurt or cheese, or it's just going to be fluid milk, whatever that is, and get that going in the tank, and then do the other chores. So we have pigs and rabbits and chickens and ducks, and like our goats are on a little break. So normally, in the summer and the fall 6 months, we milk cows, and then we milk goats too. And then for myself, I try and get everything processed and done before I have to get my boys to school in the morning. One of my sons homeschools, the other two go to public school. They kind of get to make their own choices there. And then I head to the office, and then I leave the office, I pick up the kids, and then we start afternoon chores. And I have a young lady that helps me in the afternoon, and she loves to milk, which I love. I always really encourage, if you can find someone that likes to milk, let them help you so you can go on vacation every once in a while. So she gets in the dairy, and then I hit all the other chores. And right now we're trying, we start a little bit early because it gets dark so early. So I want to get eyes on everything in the light at least once a day. And so I head around to get all the other parts done. And we're moving hay and getting everything settled up, and then close up shop and try and get supper made to do the whole thing over again the next day.
7 days a week.
7 days a week. We don't take Christmas off. And now, especially now that we have 3 cows, we'll always keep 2 in milk. So, as they get about a 2-month dry period before they go into their next cycle. And so they will have, but we'll always keep those 2 cows in milk. And then the goats will kid again here at the beginning of the summer. And then we'll add that in a little bit.
Okay, and it sounds like you have value-added products as well. You don't just sell the milk as is. It sounds like you make other things. So what other things?
I think that's really important with small farmers, and I think that's one of our superpowers as Alaskan farmers. But you really need the diversification of your products. So I don't think I could sell all the milk I needed, but we do. It's kind of probably our most popular item that I accidentally came across was skyr. It's like an Icelandic Greek yogurt, but we're really, everybody loves our skyr. It's a big deal here, and that flies out. But we do skyr, and then I have yogurt. I do soft cheeses, and I have feta that we make as well. We'll have 12 different flavors of ice cream all summer long that we put in, and folks, that's a big deal in Kodiak, that we have our little goat milk ice cream here in Kodiak. And then I'm trying to think of other things we make with our milk. I mean, within our family, we're always trying out new items. I had somebody, and the fun part is, somebody asked me yesterday, hey, can you make this chocolate cheese? And I was like, I think I can. Let me try it. I'll let you know how, I'll let you be a taste tester. So that's the fun part of being so connected with our customers, is that I talk to them, and they're like, hey, would you mind trying this out, or could you do this? And so it's always fun for us all to feel pretty connected together.
That's awesome. So we work together through Farm Bureau. If you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about how you got involved through Farm Bureau and what your role is in the organization.
Yeah, so Farm Bureau actually was really influential. Before I was a Farm Bureau member, I came across a grant that was available, and I was starting a farm and ranch after-school program, and Farm Bureau helped me seed that program. They gave the initial money that I needed to get it off the ground. And when an organization does something like that, I was like, well, gosh, I probably should become a member. And I took the steps to become a member. And my dad had been a member, but I didn't really know a lot about it. And within my first year, I found myself in Juneau, and that was at the time when the dairy program was being threatened to be taken out of the budget. So I was able to advocate for that, and then value-added products for herd shares were being, spoken about. So I felt really heard that what I was doing was important. And for me, I found peers. I found like-minded individuals that were doing their best, and they were throughout the state. So where at times I had felt all alone, all of a sudden I felt like I had an entire community of people with me cheering me on. And I think some of my favorite people have come through the Farm Bureau, and I just have enjoyed that side of it. But then further, I've realized, even as I've grown in this organization, and while I don't love politics, I like to kind of stay out of those, I also recognize that they very much influence my everyday. And so whether that being able to farm or being able to have products and my livelihood, so having the audience of our state government and then this whole crew of folks around you to help your voice be heard has been very powerful. So today now I sit on the executive council as the vice president, and it's just been one of the best parts of the past 10 years of my life, and I just really appreciate Alaska Farm Bureau. I think that right now is probably the most excitement that I have ever felt around the Farm Bureau, with the most potential to see the most happen. So I guess, this is going out there. If you're questioning, or if you're interested, or you want to have a community of folks around you, now is a really fantastic time to join the Farm Bureau.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm super excited for Alaska Ag and all the opportunities. So,
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Kelli. How can people follow you on social media? We didn't even get to talk about your social media presence, so talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's at Kodiak Goat Dairy, and I'm primarily on Instagram. I'm over on Facebook, too. It kind of jumps over to Facebook as well. And then our website is thelast.smallfarm.com. And that's just a fun way for me to, I feel like if I'm going to be a small little dairy, my checks and balances happen online. So I'm showing up every single day there, the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny. And so it's just a fun outlet for me to be able to share the things that I love so much.
Yeah, I love following you and watching all the reels or TikToks or whatever they're called on my Facebook.
Right.
It's super cool, super fun. So
yeah, we have a lot of fun.
Well, thank you so much, Kelli, for taking some time out of your super busy schedule to talk to us and share with our listeners what you do down there.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Ken.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening to Ag Matters. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Ag Matters, covering positive agriculture stories from across Alaska. Ag Matters is a production of Radio Free Palmer, recorded at our studios in Palmer, Alaska. For more information about this program, email manager@radiofreepalmer.org.